Love Babe. Love Bob. Love Inked Guy. Love you guys. Love Elmac. Thank you guys so much for coming in here, for allowing me to be an absolute idiot for 2.5, 3 hours. You know, I tell you, man, this shit, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people might not know this. Some of you might know this. I tell the story every once in a while. But like, I started streaming. I was sitting in my counselor's office and I was like, I was working like 60, 70 hours a week. For years, I was doing that. I started a company 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And it's a great thing. It's a liberating thing, starting a company, starting your own company, because you're free to do anything you want. You can, you know, you don't have to answer to anyone, but it begins to own you. And there's never, the work is never done. It's always like, if you finish this, you can do more of that. If you do more of that, if you're done that, you can do more of this. And what happens is you just lose yourself. You completely lose yourself you forget why you started doing it in the first place. After years, and I was sitting in my counselor's office just trying to refocus and figure out the whole reason why I started this thing. And I was like, I don't know. Because I didn't like 9 to 5. And she's like, well, you're doing that already now. I was like, yeah, I know, but I didn't like answering to a boss. And she's like, well, you're answering to your business partners already. And I was like, yeah, but like, I want to like make more money. And she's like, but you're making less than you were making before. And I was like, yeah, but like, I want to build something. And she's like, but at what cost, man? At what cost? At the cost of some inflated ego? And she's like, look, I want you to just do an exercise for me. I want you to just do an exercise for me. And she was like, what would you do if you didn't need to wake up, if you didn't have any responsibilities, if you didn't need money, if you could just wake up and have the whole day ahead of you. You could do whatever you want. You didn't need to worry about paying rent, paying bills, and none of that shit. And I was like, no one's ever asked me that before. What do you mean if I don't have to? I've always needed a paycheck. I've always had to pay bills, always had to pay rent. And she's like, look, just humor me. What would you do if you didn't need to do any of that? And I was like, I don't know, but probably play video games all day, probably stream on Twitch, make YouTube videos. And she was like, well, you should start doing that. She was like, you should just start doing that. What's stopping you? And I was like, I don't know. I don't have a PC. I don't know how to use OBS. I've never done it before. I don't have time. Can you believe that? You believe that I used to say, you believe that I used to give excuses like that? I used to say, oh, I don't have time. I'm too tired. I'm too busy to do this. I'm too busy boiling hot dogs and wieners. Too busy hosting hot dog parties in my bathroom. She's like, I don't want you to come back here until you've at least started the process. Animated artisan, have a good night, man. Took me months and months and months of painstakingly coming home from work. Painstakingly coming home from work after just like fighting tooth and nail against my fatigue, my emotionally exhausted brain. And I would slowly put together, I would slowly learn how to use OBS. Eventually, my friend Kevin basically leased me his PC, paid for it in like 3 or 4 installments, month to month. Every time I got my shitty paycheck. Eventually I got a keyboard, figured out OBS, and I was crippled. I didn't go live. I had all the setup for months and months and months. And I was crippled by perfection. I was like, oh, this isn't right. I don't know how to set this up. I don't know how to do this. What if this isn't right? What if someone comes in and this happens? And I was just, I had it all, but I just couldn't go live. And the first time, my friend QDAPS, he said, don't worry about being perfect. Just hit that go live button and worry about all that shit later. And I was like, okay, thank you. Because we all need someone in our life to help push us over that little patch of grass so we can do the thing that gives us energy, because we're afraid to do it. You're always afraid. There's always a million reasons to be afraid of being happier, of making more money, of living your truth, of being more free. It's hard sometimes. A lot of us are raised to think that that's too good. It's too hard to find that. But it's a hoax, man. First time I went live, I had a goddamn panic attack. I went live. The only person watching was QDAPS on the other end. And I started getting heat flashes and sweating. My heart started pounding really hard. And I ended the stream. And I had to lie down on the ground for 15, 20 minutes just to calm down. It's really nerve-wracking. And it slowly got easier and easier every time I did it for months and months and months. After it already took me a year of bullshit procrastination to go live. After it already took me a year. Every time I hit that go live button, it got a little easier. Got a little easier every time until the fear was entirely removed. And then I started to enjoy it. But for months, there was no one in here. For months, dude. And it was still a blast. I was still playing video games and shit posting and memeing, playing dating sim, Doki Doki Literature Club. Still having a blast. There's so many streamers, so many new streamers come onto Twitch, and they want it all so fast. But you gotta respect the journey, man. There's a time delay there for a reason. If you're coming on here looking for views, bits, subscriptions, follows, you're playing a losing game. You're screwing yourself from the very start. And isn't that the truth with everything in life? Setting yourself up, putting together these imaginary expectations. The only thing is the assumption of what you deserve. Which isn't true. It's made up. So go at your own pace. Don't worry about the metrics. Don't worry about the KPIs. Just have a good time. You don't need anything to choose to have a good time with something. Whether or not you're streaming, gaming, out with family, friends, being alone. You don't need anything to choose to be happy, to have a good time. That's on you. That is on you and no one else. And nothing out there is going to give it to you.